Hello travelers. Unfortunately, I come with what seems to be potentially bad news for anyone that has an interest in Exodus. And I want to put some emphasis on potentially bad news. I will explain in more detail to why later. According to a Bloomberg article by Jason Schreier, whom I personally do not consider to be a reliable source, especially after the Larian AI article debacle, James Ohlen is stepping down from his position as an executive of Archetype Entertainment. The article is fairly short, so I will jump right into it. Hasbro Inc., the toy and gaming company, is bringing in a new executive to lead the expanding video game effort under its Wizards of the Coast label. Blizzard veteran and Dreamhaven Inc. co-founder Paul DeLaBitta will take over the Wizards of the Coast Digital Ventures division under Wizards president John Hines. Also a Blizzard veteran, Hasbro said in a statement to Bloomberg on Wednesday. James Ohlen, co-founder of the company Archetype Entertainment Studio, developer of the upcoming game Exodus, will step aside. Quote, "At this stage, James felt his work on the game was complete and that the polishing and tuning were in great hands with the team," said Abby Hodes, Vice President of the Corporate Communications for Hasbro. In the statement, Hodes added that Ohlen had, quote, "asked to shift his creative focus to tabletop role-playing games and would stay on as a creative consultant for the company. Exodus, a sci-fi role-playing game that has been in development since 2019, is one of Hasbro's many ambitious bets in the video game space. The game has been delayed several times and is now slated for release in early 2027, the company said last week. The intellectual property for Exodus was established such that it could be not just a base for video games, but a bunch of other things as well, Archetype co-founder and general manager Chad Robertson said in an interview last week. He called it the tip of the spear for Hasbro's entry into big budget games. Video games are expensive endeavors, with the biggest project costing hundreds of millions of dollars, but they can be lucrative. Hasbro's Baldur's Gate 3, which was made by the external developer Larian Studios, has sold more than 20 million copies. Last week, Hasbro also announced a Dungeons & Dragons game called Warlock. Earlier this year, the company said it would partner with Stig Asmuss, director of EA's hit Star Wars Jedi action game, to develop a different action game in the Dungeons & Dragons universe. Now, according to a few other creators and forum aficionados, this article sounds a lot like typical corpo talk, and I can see where they are coming from. But I do wonder if it isn't really just the case that James just wants to step away from his executive role and simply focus on the more creative aspects of the industry. We simply do not know, hence why I wanted to put some emphasis on potentially bad news. It is fully possible that he has stepped down voluntarily, but it's also possible that he was forced to step down in one way or another, although I do not personally think that is the case. According to the article, James was not asked to step down, but rather he was the one who asked to step down himself. And I can see that being a possibility. He really is into tabletop RPG games, and he also has his own tabletop studio, Arcanum Worlds. He also seems to be very passionate about the Exodus tabletop game Star Heist, for which he has DM'd multiple sessions on the official Exodus YouTube channel. It really looks like he wants to focus on what seems to be his current passion project, now that the Exodus video game is nearing its final stages of development. And as far as I understand it, this is in line with his character. Ohlen seems to have a history of moving from project to project. He's more of a creator or say world builder than a manager, so it is possible that is what he is doing. The article also mentions that he is not completely stepping aside and that he will remain as a creative consultant. And considering that he is a former executive and also co-founder, it is safe to say that James will have more pull than your average consultant. Now that being said, it is also possible that something happened that made him step down, although I personally doubt that he would stay if that was the case. It is, however, not a good look when the co-founder decides to step down as the head of the studio, especially when the game is not completely finished yet. And it is not impossible that Hasbro decided to interfere somehow, despite supposedly not being able to do so. Ohlen has for a very long time really wanted to create a sci-fi game, and this is his brainchild. But until we get more information, if we ever will, we simply do not know. It is also true that, if I'm not mistaken, that the game has been delayed more than once, and that the release date has been pushed from 2026 to early 2027, while some creators seem to believe that this is a possible sign that the game has been, or potentially is going through, some kind of development hell. I personally do not believe that this is the case. It is more likely, I think, that the studio pushed for extra time to not have to rush things and make sure that they have the time they need to tie up loose ends and properly polish things. This is, after all, a studio of generational veterans. Extra time is not necessarily bad. It could mean that they are actually giving it the time it needs, which is a good thing. I personally hate when games are rushed, and the industry in large is filled with games that were obviously rushed and not given the time they actually needed. One example being Mass Effect 3, another being Andromeda. Now, who is the new CEO, Paul Della Bitta, and what does this mean for Exodus? Well, it depends on to why Ohlen stepped down, but I personally believe that Paul is brought in to be more of a manager / overseer of the Exodus brand and future projects. I do not really think that he will have much or potentially any impact on already finished or near finished project. He also seems to be, or at least used to be, a genuine gamer himself. He has been involved with several successful endeavors in online gaming's earlier years, such as World of Warcraft, The Burning Crusade, StarCraft 2, and a little bit more worryingly, Warcraft 3 Reforged. That being said, several other co-founders and important key figures such as Chad Robertson and Drew Karpyshyn are still at the studio. While it is possible that Wizards will find a way to, in a lack of other words, fuck something up in the future, I believe that, at least for the time being, that the Exodus game and brand as a whole is somewhat safe, and that we will potentially get an epic magnum opus to look forward to in 2027. While some people online are negative about the whole situation, I personally choose to stay cautiously optimistic. I can't really explain why. It's just a gut feeling that I have. Until next time, traveler.